Today in this video, I am going to be talking about the 11 best PS5 games you can play right now. So let's get started and quickly look at the first game on our list. GOW Ragnarok. Alright, let's talk about a game that's pretty much the pinnacle of PS5 greatness right now. If you haven't jumped into Ragnarok yet, you're seriously missing out. This game is a wild ride from start to finish, and it's clear the developers poured their hearts into making it something special. First off, the visuals are just insane. The PS5 really flexes its muscles here. From the snowy realms of Jotunheim to the fiery pits of Muspelheim, every corner of this world is crafted with such detail. It feels like you're stepping into a living, breathing mythological epic. It's not just pretty to look at, it's immersive. The environments and character designs are so rich and detailed that you'll probably find yourself just taking it all in. And let's talk about combat. If you thought the last game had great fighting mechanics, Ragnarok kicks it up a notch. You've got the Leviathan axe and the Blades of Chaos, and using them feels incredible. The battles are intense and satisfying, and the new enemy types and bosses keep things fresh. Every fight feels like a new challenge, and that's something I really appreciate. The story is where Ragnarok truly shines. Kratos and Atreus are back, and their journey is as emotional as ever. The game dives deep into themes of fate, family, and redemption. It's not just about the big, epic moments, it's about the personal ones too. The voice acting is top-notch, and you really feel the weight of their journey. The new characters and mythological beings are intriguing, and the side quests aren't just distractions, they add depth to the main story. In a nutshell, GOW Ragnarok isn't just a great PS5 game, it's a game that sets a new standard. It combines stunning visuals, intense combat, and a powerful story into one epic package. If you haven't played it yet, what are you waiting for? It's a must-play for anyone with a PS5. Spiderman 2. Okay, let's talk about one of the most exciting releases on the PS5 right now, Spiderman 2. If you're a fan of swinging through the city and web-slinging your way through epic battles, then this game is absolutely going to hit the spot. So, right off the bat, the game looks incredible. The PS5's power really comes through here. The cityscape of New York is more alive and detailed than ever. You can see the hustle and bustle, the little details in the buildings, and the lighting just makes everything pop. It's like you're actually swinging through a living, breathing city. The gameplay is where it really shines though. The web swinging feels even smoother and more exhilarating this time around. You've got new moves and abilities that make it feel like you're truly Spider-Man, not just playing him. And let's not forget the combat, it's fast, fluid, and super satisfying. The new gadgets and abilities make fighting enemies a blast, and the combos feel more dynamic and impactful. One thing I really love is how the game balances all the superhero action with those quieter, more personal moments. It's not all about the high-flying web-slinging action. You get to see Peter and Miles dealing with their everyday lives too. It adds a lot of heart to the game and makes you care even more about what happens to them. In short, Spider-Man 2 is a must-play on the PS5. It's got stunning visuals, fantastic gameplay, and a story that'll keep you hooked from start to finish. If you haven't checked it out yet, seriously, you're in for a treat. The Last of Us Part 1 Remake. Okay, hear me out. I know what you're thinking, do we really need another version of this game? But trust me, this remake is not just a cash grab, it's actually kind of amazing. Right off the bat, the first thing you'll notice is just how stunning this game looks. I mean, the original was already a visual masterpiece, but this remake, it's like they went in and turned all the dials up to 11. Every texture, every detail in the world feels richer and more alive. The lighting is insane, the facial animations are ridiculously lifelike, like you can see every little emotion flicker across a character's face. It's so immersive, it almost feels like you're watching a movie. And the thing is, this is more than just a pretty coat of paint. The gameplay has been reworked to feel smoother, more responsive. They've taken all the lessons they learned from The Last of Us Part 2 and applied them here, so it's not just the same game you played back in 2013. The controls feel tighter, the AI is smarter, like terrifyingly smart, and there are some nice little tweaks that just make the whole experience feel fresh fresh again. Let's talk about the story. Yeah, it's the same heartbreaking, gut-wrenching journey with Joel and Ellie, but that's a good thing. This game was always about the narrative, and seeing it all again with these upgrades makes it hit just as hard, if not harder. You're still gonna have those moments where you're like, damn, this is tough because the story doesn't pull any punches. If you cried before, get ready to cry again, maybe even harder this time.
Don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
The real beauty of this remake is how it balances nostalgia with modernization. For those of us who've been with the series since day one, it's like coming back to an old friend, but this time they've had a total glow up. And if you're new to the game, oh man, you're in for a ride. You get to experience one of the greatest games ever made, but with all the bells and whistles that make it feel completely current. Sure, I know some people were skeptical about whether this remake was really necessary, but after diving back into it, it's hard not to be impressed by just how much care and effort went into this. It's like they've polished every single detail, and you can feel that love for the original shining through. If you're a fan of the original, this is absolutely worth playing again, and if you're new to the series, there's never been a better way to experience it. The Last of Us Part 1 remake is a stunning love letter to the original, and honestly, it just feels like the definitive way to play this game. But hey, that's just my take. Have you tried the remake yet? Are you all in, or do you think they're just milking it? Let me know in the comments. Now let's look at the next game on our list. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
Please, Dad's not listening.
Oh man, if there was ever a game that screamed next gen, this is it. I mean seriously, it's like Insomniac Games just showed up at the PS5 launch party, threw their coat on the couch and shouted, "We got this." From the moment you hit new game, you know you're in for a wild ride. This game just feels like a giant love letter to everything that made Ratchet Clank great in the first place. But also, it's pushing things so far forward, it's like the series got launched through a rift of its own into the future. First off, let's talk about the visuals. Holy cow, this game looks like a freaking Pixar movie come to life, and I mean that in the best way possible. The colors are so vibrant, the animations are buttery smooth, and the details. Wow, you can practically see every hair on Ratchet's furry little head, every scuff on Clank's shiny metal butt. It's like every inch of this game is packed with something beautiful to look at. The worlds are huge and diverse, and each one feels unique, like they actually have their own little ecosystems going on. And then there's the whole rift mechanic. I know every preview, every trailer, everyone was talking about it, but for real, it's mind-blowing. The way you can just zip between dimensions in the blink of an eye with zero loading time, that's some pure PS5 flex right there. 1 minute you're on a peaceful alien beach, and the next you're in the middle of a city under attack, and it all happens seamlessly. It's like the console is saying, oh, you thought load times were still a thing? Cute.
Out of here. But without the Dimensionator.
But it's not just about the tech, the gameplay is so tight. The weapons, they're everything you'd want in a Ratchet Clank game. You got your classics like the trusty Omni Wrench, but then you've got all these new wild, wacky guns that do things you never even thought you needed. Like there's a weapon that turns enemies into literal topiary sculptures. Yeah, you heard me right, topiary sculptures. It's ridiculous, but it's that kind of ridiculous that makes you grin ear to ear the whole time. And the story? Surprisingly heartfelt. Yeah, it's got the usual humor and there are some real laugh out loud moments, but there's also some depth here. Ratchet's dealing with some existential stuff about being the last of his kind, Clank's trying to help him figure it out, and then you've got Rivet, the new Lombax on the block, who brings her own style and challenges. She's a total badass, by the way, and honestly it's just so refreshing to see a new character that fits in so well with the OGs. You're jumping between Ratchet and Rivet throughout the game and it keeps things fresh. Both characters have their own vibe, but they share the same core gameplay, so you're not stuck relearning everything every time you switch. Now, if there's any downside, well, it's not the longest game in the world, but honestly, that might be a blessing in disguise because it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's just pure, unfiltered fun from start to finish. And really, with so many games these days being like 100 hours long, it's kind of nice to have a tight, focused experience that you can blast through in a weekend and feel completely satisfied. So yeah, Ratchet Clank Rift Apart is not just a great game, it's a showcase of what this new console generation can do. If you're looking for a game that'll make you go, wow, this is why I got a PS5, this is the one. It's got the heart, it's got the humor, it's got the visuals, and it's got enough dimension hopping chaos to keep you glued to your seat. Yakuza Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
踊ってくださる？
Alright, let's dive into Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, or as some of you might still call it, the new Yakuza game, but let's be real, this ain't your granddad's Yakuza. So, right off the bat, this one feels like the series is stepping out in a whole new direction, but it's still got that same heart that makes it feel like, yeah, this is exactly what you'd expect in the best way possible. The story, it's wild, emotional, and, let's be honest, sometimes just plain bonkers. You've got Ichiban Kasuga back in action, still rocking that ridiculous hairdo, and now he's in the US, trying to make sense of, well, pretty much everything. Dude goes from being broke and beat up to chasing the American dream, but it's still got that same fish out of water vibe that made Ichiban so endearing in the first place. Gameplay wise, they're sticking with the turn-based combat they introduced in Yakuza Like a Dragon. At first it might feel like a weird fit. I mean, this is a series that's known for letting you smack people around with bicycles, traffic cones, and like random carp, but somehow they make it work. You've still got all that over the top, slapstick humor, and insane moves. I'm talking summoning crayfish for an attack or calling in a backup team of breakdancers. And somehow they're managing to balance it all with a deep strategic system that actually makes you think a bit before you start swinging a traffic sign like a madman. But let's talk about the world. Infinite Wealth is taking the series to a new playground Hawaii. It's kind of genius really, because it's still got that sense of familiarity with the neon lit streets and sketchy alleyways, but now we're dealing with palm trees, beaches, and tourist traps. You know, RGG Studio isn't just gonna give us a postcard version of Hawaii, nah, they're gonna show us the gritty underbelly, where gangs rule the streets, and there's a whole bunch of quirky side quests waiting for you around every corner. Oh, and speaking of side quests, man, this game is packed with them. And if you've ever played a Yakuza game, you know this is where they really let their creativity fly. Whether you're helping an aspiring influencer become the next big thing, or competing in a high-stakes game of underwater mahjong, there's no shortage of things to do. It's that blend of heartfelt and ridiculous that the series is known for. One moment you're crying over a touching story about a guy who lost everything, and the next, you're fist fighting a guy dressed up like a chicken because, well, just because. The character development is as rich as ever. Ichiban feels like the new Kazuma Kiryu, but with his own unique flavor. He's got that same sense of honor, but he's more naive, more of a dreamer, more willing to throw himself into the most absurd situations just to help someone out. The cast around him is just as eclectic. You've got your old friends from the previous game, but there's also a whole bunch of new faces, each with their own quirks and stories. And the bond system, it's back, baby. You're gonna spend hours getting to know your crew, drinking at bars, singing karaoke, and doing everything in your power to boost those friendship levels. Graphically, the game looks amazing, but I won't go on about that too much. It's got the glitzy nightscapes, the flashy fight animations, and the level of detail that makes the city feel alive, but it's not trying to wow you with just graphics. It's about the little things like the way characters interact, the expressions on their faces during those intimate conversations, or how the game seamlessly switches from a heavy, dramatic cutscene to a ridiculous dance-off with zero shame. It's charming, and it's got that only in a Yakuza game vibe, you know? And we gotta talk about the minigames, because oh boy, they're back and they're better than ever. You've got the return of series staples like karaoke and batting cages, but they've also introduced some new craziness. There's a full-on fishing mode that's deeper than some actual fishing games, and you can run your own surf shop now, dealing with inventory, customer satisfaction, and of course fending off your rivals. And if you're into the business management side of things, the economic simulator that lets you buy, sell, and negotiate your way to the top is basically a game within a game. Now, let's not pretend this game doesn't have its quirks. The pacing can be a bit uneven. 1 minute you're deep in a story mission, and the next you're trapped in an absurd side quest for an hour, because you just had to help a lost dog find its owner. But honestly, that's kind of the charm of it. The game doesn't rush you, it lets you soak in all its weirdness and heart. So yeah, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is shaping up to be another banger in the series. It's bigger, it's bolder, and it's not afraid to take risks. It's still got that perfect mix of drama, comedy, action, and just downright weirdness that makes you think, only in a Yakuza game, man. Only in a Yakuza game. So if you've got a taste for the ridiculous mixed with a heavy dose of heartfelt storytelling, and you're ready to explore the underbelly of Hawaii with Ishiban and his crew, then get ready, because this game is gonna take you on a ride. But hey, if you've played it, let me know, are you digging this new direction, or do you miss the days of classic brawler Yakuza? Persona 3 Reload.
Come, Persona!
Alright, let's talk about Persona 3 Reload, and if you've been around the block in the JRPG scene, you know this one is big. We're talking about a game that kind of set the stage for everything Persona would become, but now it's getting the glow up it always deserved. So what's the deal with Persona 3 Reload? Imagine taking a classic PS2 gem, throwing it into a time machine, and sending it straight into the future, and I'm not just talking about a simple, let's add some HD textures kind of thing. Nah, this is a full-on remake built from the ground up with new visuals, updated mechanics, and a few surprises that even old school fans won't see coming, but it's still got that dark, moody atmosphere and emotional weight that made the original so unforgettable. Let's get into the basics first. You're a high school kid who's just transferred to Gekukan High School, and surprise, you find yourself smack dab in the middle of some bizarre supernatural shenanigans. Every night when the clock strikes midnight, a hidden hour known as the Dark Hour creeps in, turning the whole town into this eerie, green-tinted nightmare filled with creatures called shadows. And who's gonna take care of that mess? Yep, you and your crew, the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad, or Cs for short, are here to save the day, battling these shadows with your personas, which are kinda like your own inner demons, but cooler. Now, if you're a fan of the series, you know that Persona 3 was the one that really put the social simulation aspect on the map, and in Persona 3 Reload, this part of the game is getting a fresh coat of paint. You're juggling school life, hanging out with friends, building relationships, acing your exams, and then boom, you're jumping into a massive, ever-shifting tower called Tartarus to fight monsters and unlock its secrets. It's got that classic blend of social life and dungeon crawling that feels oddly balanced. 1 minute you're stressing about choosing the right dialogue option to get closer to your crush, and the next you're fusing personas in a way that would make a Pokemon professor blush.
Not giving up, no matter how long it takes. To me.
The original game had some janky mechanics, let's not lie, but Reload is coming in hot with a lot of cool improvements. The combat system is more in line with what we saw in Persona 5, which means faster, snappier battles, a greater focus on strategy, and more ways to exploit enemy weaknesses for those sweet all-out attacks. The party AI is way more intelligent this time around, and you actually get to control your teammates directly instead of relying on their sometimes questionable judgment. Trust me, anyone who played the original knows the pain of an AI Yukari casting the wrong spell at the worst possible moment. And can we talk about the visuals for a sec? The game looks absolutely stunning. They've taken that distinct style from Persona 5, with all its flashy menus, stylish animations, and vibrant character designs, and merged it with the darker, more somber tones of Persona 3. The city of Iwaterdai feels more alive and atmospheric than ever. Every corner is dripping with that something's not quite right here vibe, and the character models and facial animations are way more expressive, which is gonna make all those emotional scenes hit even harder. And the music, oh man, the music. Persona 3's soundtrack was already iconic with tracks like Burn My Dread and Mass Destruction, but they're recording some of the songs and adding new ones. That signature Shoji Meguro mix of rock, jazz, and hip-hop, but with a modern twist that'll get stuck in your head for days.
You showed them Aragaki-senpai?
But here's the thing, Persona 3 isn't just about the cool aesthetic and snazzy combat. It's got a story that cuts deep. This game isn't afraid to get dark. It's dealing with some heavy stuff: death, loneliness, finding meaning in life, and the inevitability of our own mortality. Yeah, it's a game where you're playing as a bunch of high schoolers, but these kids are grappling with some existential crises that most adults would rather not think about. And it's not just the main storyline, the social links, which are basically the game's way of saying, go make some friends, are filled with these personal, heartfelt stories that add so much depth to the world and the people in it. What's got me really excited though is that they're hinting at some new content too. New events, more dialogue, maybe even some brand brand new social links or expanded storylines. The original Persona 3 had some content locked behind different versions Persona 3 FES, anyone, but Reload is looking like it's aiming to be the definitive edition, merging everything we loved about the game into one polished package. And they're not just copying and pasting here, they're giving this game the love and attention it deserves. There's been some chatter about the absence of the female protagonist from Persona 3 Portable, and yeah, that's kind of a bummer because her route brought a whole different perspective to the story. But even with that, it feels like they're pouring their heart into making sure this remake stands out on its own. If you're new to the series, Persona 3 Reload is your golden ticket to experience one of the most influential RPGs out there with a fresh twist. And if you're a veteran, well, it's time to head back to the Dark Hour and see how it's been reimagined. Dust off that evoker, get ready to face your inner demons, and maybe, just maybe, save the world while you're at it. Plague Tale Requiem. Alright, let's get into the haunting world of Plague Tale Requiem. If you haven't played the first one, A Plague Tale Innocence. Here's the quick catch up. It was one of those surprise hits that came out of nowhere, and it absolutely delivered with its gripping story, stunning visuals, and a whole lot of rats. Like seriously, so many rats. Now, Requiem takes everything that was good about the original and cranks it up to 11. We're back with our girl Amisha and her little brother Hugo, who have been through hell in back medieval France, a plague of biblical proportions, and a whole mess of Inquisition soldiers, and guess what? It doesn't get any easier for them in this sequel. If you thought the first game was a roller coaster of tension and emotion, buckle up because Requiem goes even deeper. This time around, the stakes are higher, the world is bigger, and the story is even more intense. Amisha and Hugo are on the run, searching for a place they can call home, somewhere far away from the nightmares that keep chasing them. But, surprise surprise, the curse that haunts Hugo isn't letting go so easily. The supernatural side of things is ramping up in ways that are pretty mind-blowing, but still grounded in this gritty, raw portrayal of medieval life. The whole vibe is darker, and there's a new level of desperation in the air. You feel it in every step Amisha takes, every furtive glance over her shoulder.
What's happening to me, Lucas? I feel my mind.
Let's talk gameplay for a second. The first game was all about stealth and survival, using your wits to avoid detection and making sure you weren't caught in the jaws of the rat swarms. And that's still a huge part of Requiem, but now they've layered on some new mechanics that give you more ways to handle threats. Amisha's not the same scared girl she was before. She's a seasoned survivor now. You've got more tools in your arsenal, from crossbows to alchemy, and the combat is way more dynamic. You can fight back a little more, you've got more options to outsmart your enemies, and let's be real, you feel a little more badass sneaking around with all these new tricks up your sleeve. But what really gets me about this game is how it looks. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. The environments are jaw-dropping, like screenshot every 5 minutes kind of pretty. You've got sweeping vistas, dense forests, crumbling ruins, and eerie villages, all drenched in atmosphere. The attention to detail is insane. You can almost feel the mud under your feet and smell the damp, decaying wood, and the lighting. Don't even get me started. They've dialed it up to make the game feel like this living, breathing painting that's constantly on the edge of breaking apart. It's beautiful, but in that dark, haunting way that makes you feel like something's just lurking around the corner. And, oh, the rats are back, and they're somehow even more terrifying this time. We're talking oceans of rats that move like a living wave, devouring everything in their path. They've upped the ante on how these swarms behave, making them more aggressive, more unpredictable, and they're not just there to give you the creeps, they're woven into the gameplay in even more creative ways. You'll be using them to your advantage, or trying to avoid them altogether, and the game constantly throws new scenarios at you to keep things fresh. But at the core of all this, it's still a story about two kids trying to find some semblance of peace in a world that's hell-bent on tearing them apart. Amisha's relationship with Hugo is the beating heart of the game. You feel every bit of her determination, her fear, her desperation to protect her little brother even when it seems impossible. And Hugo, he's still just a kid, but he's got this dark power growing inside him that he's struggling to control. The dynamic between them is filled with tension, tenderness, and moments that'll just rip your heart out. And look, if if you're in this for the feels, Requiem is gonna hit hard. There are moments in this game that will straight up make you pause and just breathe. It's got this way of getting under your skin, of making you care about these characters in a way that few games manage to do. And it's not just Amisha and Hugo. The supporting cast gets more depth, more screen time, and the new characters that come into their lives add layers to the narrative that'll keep you hooked. It's not a game for the faint-hearted. It gets dark, it gets heavy, and it doesn't hold your hand. But if you're up for the challenge, if you want a game that's gonna pull you into its world and make you feel every moment, every bit of fear, hope, and sorrow, then A Plague Tale: Requiem is absolutely worth your time. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection.
Get up here!
Alright, so here's the deal with the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. This one brings together two of the best adventure games out there, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End and Uncharted The Lost Legacy, all polished up for the PS5. Now, if you've never played these games before, you're in for a real treat. Think of it like Indiana Jones meets Mission Impossible, with some of the most ridiculous action set pieces and some genuinely heartfelt storytelling. But let's not pretend this collection is reinventing the wheel or anything. It's still very much the same games that came out a few years back, just with a shiny new coat of paint. They look stunning, don't get me wrong, the graphics are sharper, and those 60 frames per second are buttery smooth, but if you've already played them on the PS4, the upgrade might not be enough to warrant a full replay, unless you're a die-hard fan. What makes these games special though isn't just the visual upgrade, it's that classic Naughty Dog magic. Nathan Drake's last hurrah in A Thief's End is packed with everything you'd expect: breathtaking vistas, witty banter, and those "how the hell am I still alive" moments. And then there's The Lost Legacy, where Chloe Fraser and Nadine Ross step up and take center stage, proving the series doesn't need Nate to be great. Both games still hold up thanks to the solid mix of exploration, puzzle solving, and cinematic gunfights. But here's the kicker: Uncharted has always been about spectacle, right? Those jaw-dropping moments where you're scrambling up a cliff as it crumbles into the sea, or driving a jeep through a war-torn city. And that's where the PS5 really shines, making those set pieces feel more dynamic and intense. Now, is this collection a must-buy? Maybe. If you're new to Uncharted, it's a no-brainer. You get to experience two fantastic games looking better than ever. If you've already been through these adventures, it's more of a nice-to-have, not a need-to-have. But hey, any excuse to swing around on a grappling hook and trade quips with Sully is a good one, right?
And some guns. And some guns.
Sorry, mate.
Ghost of Tsushima. Alright, let's talk about Ghost of Tsushima. This one, man, it's like stepping into a moving painting of feudal Japan, but with way more sword fights and fewer tea ceremonies. Right off the bat, it's all about atmosphere. This game has this way of just sucking you into its world: the swaying grass, the cherry blossoms floating in the wind, the distant sounds of battle. It's like you can almost smell the rain or feel the sting of the ocean spray on your face. You play as Jin Sakai, a samurai caught between honor and survival after a brutal Mongol invasion leaves his home in ruins. And let me tell you, the story here is surprisingly deep. It's got layers like a good piece of sushi. It's not just about saving the island, it's about what you're willing to sacrifice to do it. You've got Jin, who's stuck in this internal tug of war between being the noble samurai he was raised to be and becoming the ruthless ghost the island needs him to be. And now combat? Oh, it's slick. At first, you're all about that samurai code, challenging enemies to duels, pairing with precision, and feeling like a total badass. But then the game lets you get sneaky. You can sneak around, poison darts in hand, or just blow things up if you're feeling particularly fed up with the Mongols that day. It's all about letting you choose your path, which, yeah, may lead to a few moral dilemmas and some side eye from your samurai uncle, but who's keeping score? Now, some might say it leans a bit too much into the checklist formula, you know, clear the camp, follow the fox, collect the thing. Sure, it's got that, but there's something oddly satisfying about it here. Like, you're not just ticking off boxes, you're kind of zenning out in this gorgeous, wind-guided adventure. Plus, the director's cut on PS5 brings Iki Island, which adds a chunk of new story, more Mongols to stab, and some seriously stunning new locations. So yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is a vibe. It's not perfect, but it's definitely one of those games that stays with you. You might find yourself casually humming the theme or wishing you could summon the wind to guide you in real life. If you're even slightly into samurai cinema or just love a game that lets you get lost in its world, this one's worth checking out. Black Myth Wukong. Alright, let's talk about Black Myth Wukong. This one's got everyone buzzing, and for a good reason. I mean, it came out of nowhere, and suddenly everyone's like, hold up, is this the Dark Souls of Journey to the West? And honestly, yeah, kinda, but with a lot more monkey business. You're stepping into the fur-covered shoes of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King himself. This dude is legendary in Chinese folklore, with more tricks up his sleeve than a stage magician at a kid's party. And the game leans hard into that. From the early gameplay we've seen, you're doing all kinds of wild stuff, transforming into insects to sneak past enemies, whipping that magical staff around like you're trying to clean up a brawl, and just generally making everyone's life hell in a really flashy, over-the-top way. Graphically, this game is a chef's kiss. We're talking some of the most stunning visuals I've seen. The fur on Wukong's arm, unreal detail, the environments, out of this world. It's got this vibe like you're stepping straight into a mythical painting, but with more action and honestly, a lot more gore. But it's not just about looking pretty, the combat looks fierce. It's like a perfect blend of speed and precision, where you're reading enemy patterns, dodging and countering at the last second, and then slapping them back with some insane moves that only a Monkey King could pull off. And let's not even get started on the bosses. From what's been teased, these aren't your run-of-the-mill, hit him 3 times in the glowing weak spot kind of bosses. No, these are the types that make you rethink your life choices. They're big, brutal, and they don't mess around. One minute you're fighting some giant wolf demon, and the next you're squaring up against an army of soldiers who are not impressed with your monkey antics. It feels like a challenge where every fight is gonna have you on the edge of your seat, white-knuckling your controller. Returnal. Let's dive into Returnal. This one's a wild ride from start to finish, and if you're into games that make you rethink your life choices, then oh boy does this one deliver. So, you're Salim, an astronaut crash landing on this eerie, ever-changing alien planet called Atropos. And right off the bat, you're thrown into this time loop where dying isn't just a minor setback, it's like the whole game is built around this mechanic. You're going to die. A lot. And each time you do, you wake up right back at the start of your journey, but with new insights and a slightly different landscape to explore. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, but with more space monsters and less Bill Murray. The first thing that hits you about Returnal is its atmosphere. It's haunting and beautiful in a way that sticks with you. The alien world is just as deadly as it is mesmerizing, with biomes that shift and change, creating a sort of labyrinthine feeling where you're never quite sure what's around the corner. The PS5's hardware really makes this thing pop, with its quick load times and the DualSense controller making those alien sculptures and gunshots feel shockingly immersive. Now, the combat, oh man, it's frenetic and challenging, like they took every tough as nails roguelike you've ever played, threw in some bullet hell elements, and then wrapped it all up in a sci-fi setting. You're dodging, weaving, and shooting with a huge arsenal of weapons that you can mix and match to fit your playstyle. The weapons are cool, each with its own unique abilities, and they drop randomly, which keeps you on your toes. The story's a trip too. It's not just mindless action, there's a deep, existential element to it. As you progress, you unravel more about Salim's backstory and the planet's dark secrets. It's all about isolation, trauma, and the struggle to break free from an endless cycle. And the way it unfolds is both compelling and eerie. The lore of Atropos is twisted and intriguing, and it'll keep you guessing as you piece together the narrative through cryptic messages, haunting visions, and those wonderfully weird alien artifacts. But let's be real, Returnal isn't for everyone. The roguelike nature means you're constantly starting over, and that can be brutal. If you're not into that kind of grind, this game can feel more punishing than rewarding. And even if you are into it, the difficulty spikes can be a bit much sometimes. But if you're up for a challenge and don't mind a bit of repetition, the sense of accomplishment from finally making progress is pretty satisfying. So yeah, Returnal is intense, beautiful, and a bit maddening. It's one of those games where every every victory feels hard-earned and every defeat makes you want to try again. If you're looking for something that'll push your limits and keep you coming back for more, give it a shot. Just be prepared to lose track of time and maybe your sanity as you dive into its twisted alien world. Well, I think that's it for this video. I really enjoyed making this one. It's a lot of talking about these amazing games. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe and give this video a like, and I will see you in the next. Have a great day.